Moses Itauma.
Dillian Whyte is looking lean. I like what I'm seeing from Dillian Whyte. It's making me actually think about things. My perception originally of this fight was Dillian Whyte based upon what we've seen in his last two, where he's looked slow, fleshy, and just not interested. Man's looking interested in recent clips.
He knows he's been sent over there, lamb to the slaughter.
Yep.
And it's like, they think this little kid's gonna just ice me. No. That's exactly it, right? So he must, and because of who he is, Dillian Whyte's a roadman.
Yeah.
He must hear this. Forget the boxing side of things. Like, you know, like, this is gonna sound so stupid, yeah? If you are a bit of a bad boy on the road, yeah, and you're, what, 37?
Yeah.
You think you're accepting walking past a bunch of 21-year-olds and one of those 21-year-olds calls you out to a fight that you're gonna duck and run. So he's probably looking at Moses. He's not even looking at it from a boxing point of view. He's looking at it from a man to kid point of view. Now you're a kid.
To be fair, like I had 11 fights with Dillian. We got to world #1, and so I know Dillian really, really well. I don't like that fight for him. I never thought it'd be a step up for someone. He won't like me saying that. It's just my emotional investment that was in him. But you know, he's done very well, Dillian, and he deserves a big payday. I'm sure. I'm hoping he's getting that. Listen, he's got the experience to upset the apple cart, Dillian. He has. But what's his name? Who's he fighting?
Moses Itauma.
Moses, I beg your pardon. Moses is a serious, responsive operator, and man can pick his punches well. So, yeah.
Moses is going to be a heavy favourite, but how much of a jump in class and pedigree is this from his previous fight?
Well, it's such a big jump because, you know, Dillian's not an idiot, isn't he? He fancies the fight. This is a big jump for him. He's done everything up to now that's been asked of him, but there's that question mark about what happens if he goes into the later rounds. I mean, he has gone the distance once, but I'm talking about with somebody who doesn't fiddle around, somebody who actually would like to get in the latter rounds and is capable of knocking people over. You know, he's a puncher. You've seen him do it, and he's done it with world-class fighters.
Moses Itauma comes under fire from boxing pros, and here's Frank Warren subtly planting seeds of doubt, talking up Dillian Whyte's so-called danger while questioning Moses' untested chin. But let's be real, Dillian's power isn't the wrecking force it once was, and Moses' speed, reflexes, and ferocity will expose that from the opening bell. This isn't a war for survival, it's a stage for Moses to dismantle an aging name.
What is your forecast for this fight?
I think he's gonna be in a tough fight. I know he's got the punch power to hurt and stop Dillian Whyte, but I also know that Dillian Whyte also has the punch power to cause damage. And the one thing with Moses at the moment is that's not been tested. So we'll see.
But do you think are you still a bit tough fight? But you expect him to stop him?
I expect him. I believe he will win the fight. I believe he'll win the fight. How he wins it, we'll see. For me.
Now Ade Oladipo is out here making it sound like Dillian just needs to feel ready, and the win is his. That's not confidence. That's delusion. You don't beat a hungry, undefeated 20-year-old by talking about how prepared you feel after years of inactivity. Moses isn't coming for a friendly spar. He's coming to drop the curtain on Dillian's career.
And I said, buddy, do you have any say? You've worked with Dillian a long time now. When Dillian gets a fight like Moses Itauma, do you have any say in it? Do you say like, nope, and he's like, no, I asked Dillian, are you ready for this? And if he says yes, then we train him. Right. And he says the way in which Dillian said, yeah, I'm ready for it, like, I want to do this.
Even Tyson Fury's compliments come with warnings about Dillian's power. Yes, Dillian can still land a shot, but those same big swings are exactly what a sharp, fresh fighter like Moses will read and counter. Step up or not, the timing couldn't be better. Moses is rising, Dillian is rusting, and that's a mismatch in the making.
For Moses, I think it's a very good time to fight Dillian. He's had a couple of years out the ring. But, you know, make no mistakes, Dillian Whyte is a massive puncher to head and body. I know he's taking it very serious. I'm speaking to Ty Mitchell, who's in training camp with him. And looking forward to the fight. You know, it's a big step up for Moses because he hasn't really fought anybody on Dillian's level. The old Dillian, it was a couple of years ago.
And then Frank Warren doubled down, still trying to paint Dillian as some unstoppable force. Here he is again, hyping Dillian's ability to knock people over like it's still 2018. Reality check. World-class fighters have knocked Dillian over and kept him there. This fight isn't about whether he can last the later rounds, it's about whether he can even survive the early storm Moses will bring. My bet, he can't.
I'm talking about with somebody who doesn't fiddle around, somebody who actually would like to get in the latter rounds and is capable of knocking people over. You know, he's a puncher, you've seen him do it, and he's done it with world-class fighters.
Mark Tibbs admits the truth without even realizing it. This fight is happening because Dillian needs the payday, not because he's the better man. If Dillian was still a genuine contender, he wouldn't be chasing a 20-year-old rising star for a paycheck. This is just the beginning of Moses proving the old guard has no answers for him.
I mean, I like the fight. The reason being is because Moses Itauma, we've been saying now, is that guy. He needs that test, he needs that step up. And I think Dillian Whyte is that guy. Dillian Whyte's probably found it hard now to get that big fight. He's probably said, I'll fight Moses Itauma if you give me X amount of money. And that's probably why this fight's getting made. But Dillian Whyte...
And then came Adam Smith, still questioning whether Moses is truly ready for Dillian's challenge. Smith joins the chorus, praising Moses with one hand while taking the credit away with the other. Too much for him at this stage. That's the kind of dismissive talk that fuels a young fighter's hunger. These so-called experts keep forgetting that Dillian's too much has already been handled, and badly, by men far less explosive than Moses. At just 20, Moses has the reflexes, power, and sharpness that a ring-rusted heavyweight like Dillian simply can't match. This isn't a step too soon. It's a perfectly timed dismantling in the making. Adam might want to watch the fight, but what he's going to see is Dillian humbled in front of the world.
Included in that, I think he's very, very good, Moses Itauma. So some people might say he'll get rid of Dillian Whyte like he has the others. Maybe not. Maybe Dillian's too much for him at this stage, which is why it's...
Here's Dillian Whyte trying to talk like a master tactician. More punches and added strategy sound fine in theory, but the truth is his timing has been fading for years. Against Moses, there's no luxury to slowly set traps. The younger man will dictate the pace from the opening bell. Dillian talks about setting up shots, but his recent fights have shown he's the one who gets set up when the pressure mounts. Moses won't stand still to admire his work. He'll be in Dillian's face, making every second uncomfortable. If Dillian genuinely believes a few tweaks in training camp can bridge the gap, he's about to walk into the most brutal lesson of his career.
There's a lot more punches than that, and I have a lot more punches than that. So, I'm not just focusing on one punch. I'm focusing more on strategy and getting to the strategic position to learn what we're learning. It's a softball, so you can't just walk up to him and learn left hook and then the same like you do on other people. So you have to set it up and timing and stuff. So yeah, I've just been working more on that.
Simon Jordan's assessment exposes exactly what boxing insiders really think. This isn't a fight they consider dangerous for Moses. They might expect Dillian to stretch it a few rounds, but ultimately, they know he's not a threat. And yet they still frame it as some big test for Moses, as if he hasn't already outclassed seasoned pros both in the gym and under the lights. The reality is this matchup exists because the timing is perfect. Moses is climbing fast, Dillian is in decline, and the outcome feels almost inevitable. The only real questions are how quickly Moses will adapt to a slower, more predictable opponent, and how much punishment Dillian can absorb before the referee steps in.
But it'll be fascinating to see how Moses goes against Dillian. I don't think they put him in against Dillian Whyte if they think there's real jeopardy for them. I think they might get a few rounds and get asked a few more questions than possibly they've been asked by Marius Wack and Dempsey McKean.
From there, the conversation turned to whether Dillian could dig deep and channel his old self if he hopes to survive. Ade Oladipo's analysis is telling. Dillian would have to summon a version of himself that simply doesn't exist anymore. The old-school Whyte was reckless, unpredictable, and willing to brawl, but that same style got him knocked out cold by better-prepared opponents. Moses isn't some wide-eyed 20-year-old intimidated by Dillian's past antics. He's a new breed built for precision and control. Mind games won't rattle someone who's been competing at elite amateur and professional levels since his teens. The problem for Dillian is simple. Even if he could find that old version of himself, Moses is too sharp, too young, and too relentless for it to work.
And we need to almost see the old school Dillian Whyte who, wasn't afraid of anyone, would put it on anyone, because Moses is still only 20. And I almost feel like if Dillian needs a path to victory, it might start from outside the ring first, and then we'll see. Because there would have been a time when Moses has grown up and he's watching Dillian Whyte.
Tyson Fury, though respectful toward Moses, still frames this fight as a matter of how much Dillian has left in the tank. And that, in truth, is already the core issue. The discussion isn't about whether Dillian is at his peak, it's about whether he's even fully functional anymore. Tyson is right about one thing. Moses is like a sponge. Every round, every spar, every high-pressure moment, he absorbs it all and turns it into fuel. This fight isn't about whether it's too soon for Moses. It's about whether Dillian can handle a fighter who learns on the fly and adjusts in real time. When a young fighter with that mindset senses weakness, the ending comes quickly.
It's going to be interesting to see how much that Dillian Whyte has left, and could this be potential? I think it does have the potential to do what Martin McCauley did to Jared Anderson. Maybe it's too early, or maybe he passes with flying colours, and that's why you got to watch it and find out. But one thing I will say about Moses is he's a very good fighter, good little boxer, good puncher, and a lovely kid as well. It's like a sponge.
Johnny Nelson tries to sell this as Dillian's trademark toughness, but the most telling line slips out at the end. He might be a gatekeeper now. That's the reality everyone else is dancing around. Dillian's role in boxing today is to test rising talents, not to dominate them. And Moses isn't just another hopeful. He's the future face of the heavyweight division. Gatekeepers don't defeat fighters like Moses. They get beaten convincingly and end up as highlight reels on the road to a title shot. If Dillian's main selling point is that he likes a fight, then he's in for a punishing night against someone who loves winning far more than brawling.
We will be forever changing until that new star establishes himself. So we'll just wait and see, but it's exciting.
What do you make of Itauma versus Dillian Whyte?
It's a good fight. Dillian Whyte likes to fight. He'll have to tear up.
Yeah.
You know, you can't test this man to go runners. You know, he'll fight anybody and everybody. So with Dillian doing that, you think, you know what? You know, it's a good fight, good testing fight, and like, you know, he might be a gatekeeper.
From there, the conversation widened to an even bigger question: just how elite Moses could become in the coming years. Tyson's comments about elite heavyweights and constant movement strike directly at why Dillian will be in trouble. Fighters forced to move and react without pause eventually slow down, and once that happens, they become easy prey. Moses, even at just 20, already fights with that level of fluidity and relentless pace. He won't stand still to give Dillian time to plant his feet for those big shots. Instead, he'll be circling, feinting, jabbing, making Dillian chase shadows. That's how you drain the tank of an older heavyweight. Dillian has always looked best when opponents stand in front of him and trade. But when forced to move, his power fades, his timing slips, and his defense cracks. If Moses follows that blueprint, this fight could look less like a challenge and more like a dismantling.
I think he's one of the best of all time. I really do. I think he's one of the best heavyweights of all time. And his movement is so different. One of the things that was interesting, where they were talking about the fight, and AJ Tony Bellows was talking about when he fought him, and AJ was saying that when he fought him, it was the most exhausted he's ever been, because he's always moving. There's no rest with.
Bellows' take is clear-cut and brutally honest. Fighters who can adapt their weight and style for a single opponent are operating on a higher plane. That's what separates future champions from mere contenders. It's also why the constant chatter about Dillian's experience feels outdated. Moses isn't stepping into this fight hoping his standard approach works. He's tailored his preparation to specifically dismantle Dillian's strengths. That means sharpening his speed to counter those looping hooks, adjusting his power to keep Dillian wary, and building a gas tank that can sustain a relentless pace for the entire fight. For a young fighter to possess that level of discipline is rare. For an aging fighter to face it is dangerous. Dillian's best path is to drag Moses into a slugfest. But against someone who's designed his strategy to avoid exactly that, it's a losing formula before the first bell even rings.
Well, there's no one who's going to beat him. I just think technically, physically now, he's at the weight and he's adapted and he's adjusted. I mean, he's even adjusted and adapted his weight for this fight individually. I mean, he put on how much weight and slowed his actual feet down because Daniel Dubois' feet were slow.
We've now reached the stage where it's impossible to ignore what's truly at stake. This isn't just a bout, it's a statement. For Moses Itauma, defeating Dillian Whyte isn't about a paycheck or a headline. It's about taking out a name that once stood among the division's most feared. For Dillian, this is a last stand. A chance to prove he's still relevant against the man many see as the sport's future. That's why the build-up has been so charged. Why experts keep weighing in. Some tout Dillian's grit and experience. Others warn of Moses's meteoric rise. But once the bell sounds, words won't matter. One man is on the ascent, the other fighting to halt the descent. If Moses wins, he doesn't just pass a test. He sends a shockwave through the heavyweight division. It's a shortcut to marquee fights, bigger paydays, and the kind of spotlight most boxers chase for a decade. If Dillian pulls off the upset, it rewrites the narrative and breathes new life into a career many had written off. But here's the reality. Mental sharpness, hunger, and youth all lean toward Moses. Dillian's banking on a single shot to change everything. Moses is betting on every other factor to ensure that shot never finds its mark. Are you backing Moses Itauma to dominate, or do you see Dillian Whyte springing the surprise?